Right. So technical feasibility, again, is alterations must meet the maximum design standard, the minimum design standard, unless it's technically infeasible to do so. It refers to structural conditions, not cost, so it can't be too expensive to do. And even if you cannot meet all design standards, you must meet to the standards to the maximum extent feasible. So gone are the days of looking at a curb ramp saying, yeah, we're never going to meet that. We're out of here. You need to look at it. You need to see what you can do to get it as usable as possible. It requires entities to make programs accessible in all cases unless it's technically infeasible. The improvement fundamentally alters the nature of the program. So if there's a historic building or historic features, or if there's a trail, a rugged hiking trail or something like that, connectivity, or it creates an undue financial burden, and that's different than cost. An undue financial burden is if it's so expensive, it's going to shake the whole program. And now we're finding with these lawsuits that, you know, it's not really going to matter. But there's a process for this. The commissioner has to sign off on it. So it's very rarely used. But for some people, for buildings, again, for architecture, if you've got an old building and you are trying to make it accessible and you need to put elevator in it and there's no way to do it, it would be, you know, it would be an undue burden for the project. You wouldn't be able to do the project, then that might come into play. We have the technical and feasibility form. It's in front of you. If you're from New York, you probably recognize it. We did use theirs as a model. What ADA requires is that we document that a facility is not is unable to be made ADA compliant, and a facility is a curb ramp. It's not a system. So each curb ramp is a facility, each sidewalk is a facility. So it's really going to be kind of onerous, but we're going to get ourselves out doing this stuff. Non-standard curb ramps may be identified during preliminary design, final design, or construction. So we've talked a lot about that. You might get out there and find that you're just not going to be able to make it happen. You dig into something and it's crazy, or you've got slopes that you just thought you could meet but couldn't. And a separate form must be completed for each non-compliant curb ramp. Now, that form, which I'm going to go over, that doesn't belong in the project file, although you can put them in there. That project belongs with our inventory. Do you remember that inventory I showed you with every curb ramp? As we complete these, as we do them right, as we make them compliant, we are required to show that if we couldn't make them compliant, they're not, that curb ramp wasn't able to be made compliant because of X, Y, and Z. And we need to be able to show the people who come in to either investigate or determine this stuff that we've done our due diligence. So we're trying to take that information and connect it with our inventory. So what are the reasons for infeasibility? So structural reasons, big bridge beams, buildings, basements. I was in a room last week, 2 weeks ago, underneath a sidewalk. There were about 5 of us in there. We saw the poles come down where the signal poles go, and 2 I-beams across the concrete sidewalk. You never know what you're going to find out there, and we're going to learn more about some of that and in some of our examples about some of the challenges you face with these things. Utilities. So if a project isn't scoped to move utilities, then that's a reason for technical infeasibility. You know, if you're doing a light capital paving and there's this telephone pole in the middle of a curb ramp, it's beyond the scope of the project to get utilities involved to move those. But if you're not, if you're designing, then you need to work with utilities. Historic features. Historic features, buildings, I say districts, I want to be very careful about that. if there's a historic district, you can't say, okay, it's a historic district, we're not touching any of it. You need to build it to the maximum extent feasible. You need to work with folks, on, you know, the historic folks, and you know all that. A lot goes into historic features, but ADA is part of that. Steep existing grades, profile grades, exceed the running slope. Right-of-way, some of our projects, we talked about this earlier, it may not require right-of-way. We might be having a project that will, you know, eventually, but right-of-way might be a reason, but you'd have to check back with us. Drainage, we talked about drainage, and also, you know, if you're just doing a light paving and you're not going to be dealing with drainage, that might be a reason. And then there's all sorts of other reasons that you might run into that you would need to put forward. On your form on the front page, this is what you check. If it's the running slope that wasn't made compliant, you'd say what you got for compliance. So you got 10% or 8.34. Cross slope, counter slopes, all of those things, clear spaces, and you check those and you say why. On the second page, if you look at the bottom, there's a future considerations checkbox. So if you are doing a light paving project, or you are doing a project where you're not doing a whole lot of work beyond what you're scoping, and you couldn't make it compliant with the scope, but if you rebuilt the thing, you would check this box. If you've got a constraint that you're never going to get compliant because you have to, you know, break the street down to, you know, that's when you check that box. So we'll know when we come back to it that when we reconstruct it, we'll fix it. Approval and filings. The form should go to the appropriate program manager or region manager if you're in the regions, and to me. If you're in the highway program, it should go to Brad. If you're in the bridge program, it should go to Wayne and me. But not just Wayne and not just Brad, but it should be sent to me as well. And approval may be granted at the program level. They might give you a call, check this out, yeah, okay, fine. Or if there's something kind of hinky, we might take it to engineering council. And that's it. That's infeasibility. And I probably generated more questions than not, but I'm glad to answer anything that I can. Maybe not. I like that. Yeah.
Okay, here it says on level of proposed level of compliance.
Mm-hmm.
And what were those levels to?
Those are that standard detail you just saw. Yeah. Yeah. Right in the standard details, right, that chart that we've been showing 2 or 3 times.
But the proposed would be as good as you can get it.
Right. Oh, yes, yeah.
If you're
designing, that's what you're proposing you can get, yes. Yes.
Yeah, so on running slope, that's 8.2%, but you can only get 10%.
Right.
That's what you populated in that.
Right, in that side part, yeah, that's what you got for,
Compliant.
yeah, yeah. It can't just be, we couldn't get the running slope. We should get the slope that we got to the maximum extent feasible. Yeah.
So if we hit that 15-foot max and we're still at a greater running slope than the 8.33, we need that.
And you can note it, you know, that it was 15 feet out.
To what extent are we aiming to do these during design phase versus construction? Is it kind of a mix of both?
That's a mix of both. It's really, one of the things that I'm a little bit concerned about is that they'll think that they can't do it in design, and we'll get out there and figure, oh, they said we didn't need to do this, but then you're out there and, yeah, you can get it or get it. So it's kind of working together, working this out, working through the program.
These can be modified as well.
Yes.
Right, so if you receive one, you go out to build a project, that doesn't mean you just accept it as gospel. You can actually, do the best you can, and maybe 2 things couldn't be met, and then when you're all done construction, only 1 couldn't be met, or maybe this goes away at the end, depending on what you were able to do, work your magic out there, so. Those can be altered and modified throughout.
I don't want it just to be, if I get one that's just got something checked off in design and it's, I'm gonna be questioning that. Pretty well, you know.
It's doing this like a deed, design exception, put them in as a list, as a package, or all we usually do?
Yeah, I need to get them back, though.
This has to be one for each.
Right, that's what I'm saying, you put those all in a one meeting, and have
Talking like at the end of the project,
you know,
No, you can,
talking during the.
no, they need to be individual. I think for me, having it individually, because what I want to be able to do is connect that document with that curve ramp. So I don't want 100 curve ramps on one of those, it needs to be. So if we've got like 10 curve ramps on a project, and 8 of them, were made compliant, I want those 2 to be compliant.
I guess, but it's more on our process.
Right, what you
We'll
do
do
is, if you come on a technical and feasibility during design, document it, provide it, but it's not gonna be finalized until it's constructed, because if we may be able to make it feasible, we will, but if it continues to be feasible, we'll verify that, and then it'll be finalized.
Right.
So do we submit it as a design exception?
Not a design,
It's not in the design,
it's own form, so.
it's its own form. That's kind of the difference, it's not,
I wanna clarify
Yeah.
that, because we do it, you know, right, is there,
I know.
through that design exception process.
So
first,
those come to me into Theresa.
So that's a separate operation.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That was-
Okay, out of experience, don't tell the contractor that there's infeasible, because guess what? They will make them all infeasible.
right,
No.
exactly.
So, don't
This
tell
is
them
the
that,
inspector
because
stuff.
we did. My project was one of those that went out, and went out, and went out, and went out, and then they turned the pages around and said, we directed them. Well, no, we were helping them, case by case, individual areas, because they were not all the same. We had rehab, we had new construct, they just did not know what they needed to do. Well, we gave them this right off the bat, the design, everything that we needed, and they did nothing. And they expected me
Crumpled
to fill out this form on every single one of them. I say, you fill it out and tell me the reason why you didn't do the work.
And that's another good question about the level, and my concern with at least use one, you know, for some of my jobs. But, yeah, we're kind of, we're gonna have to refine this process, I think, as we start getting more and more of these. And, you know, but I need a copy of them, I need to look at them, because I need to be able to put it in the inventory and say, we did our due diligence on that. Yes?
You want to talk about the length of the level to be used?
We talked about that a little earlier, we're using 2 foot for our inspectors and our, what we call collectors, people going out collecting information on all these that aren't even in projects. So the people that are inspecting and being trained to inspect will have 2 foot. We use 4 foot sometimes, but we're using digital, and they need to be calibrated more than once a season. Once a week, I do mine.
I think it's been implied a couple of different times, but Theresa and Atlee and any of us are willing to come out and, you know, look at something in design, in construction, anytime that we think, you know, we might be able to help. So don't be afraid to use a phone, give us a call, we'll get out there.
On HMA ramps versus some of the other ramps, it's more of a challenge usually with 2 foot level than it is using a 4 foot level. Place, gets rolled, and everything else, things change on HMA pretty quickly. It's not like a concrete one where you're screwing the thing off. You check it really close, it stays that way. So that can be a challenge as well.
I would think that you'd be better off with a longer level
Yeah.
than a shorter level, you know.
But
I've
been to places where you're
trying
trying to get in between stuff, and the 4 foot's too long. You know, if you've got a 4 foot place, and, you know, it can be challenging that way too, so, I'm using what DOJ uses.